snow travel is extremely difficult. Large gaps covered with thin ice. The bottom line is that every traveler who goes on a journey to the poles must be prepared to face death at the next moment. Nature does not provide food and conditions. We have to take it with us on the journey. Vehicles do not go there, and the only recourse is dog sledges. The intense sunlight that hits the snow will probably destroy the sight forever. The blood-clotting cold may even tingle the skin on the hands, feet, and genitals. Travelers who have traveled to the poles have often described those experiences that are beyond description. But what if one person is left alone in the South Pole during such a difficult journey? I'm going to tell you the true story that happened 100 years ago. Hello, welcome back. This is Third Eye. Let's begin the journey to that story. 1882, May 5th, Douglas Mawson was born in England. But the child's family is migrating to Australia at the age of 2. Why Australia was chosen, the country called Australia also was part of the British Empire. At that time, this boy completes his primary education in Sydney. Since then, around 1902, he has acquired an engineering degree in mining and geology. He was about 20 years old at that time. If we look at it today, that boy has become an engineer 120 years ago. But Douglas Mawson was more interested in the expedition. All the events are happening 120 years ago. The map of the world is not in anyone's hands. There are many undiscovered places left on Earth that have not been reached by humans. Therefore, adventure travelers from many parts of the world were often involved in expedition. He makes no small expeditions, even the Antarctic expedition known as Nimrod expedition from 1907 to 1909. So he is attracting world attention. Explorers from many parts of the world even think that it would be good to travel with him. At that time in 1910, he was getting invited by one of the world-famous explorers. He also wanted to be a part of the Antarctic expedition, or so they invite naturally. It is a good opportunity, and he should have accepted it, but he is refusing it. The reason is nothing else. His requirement is to be the first to reach a place, or to visit it the most times. The finished fame was nothing. After going to a place, it should be possible to accurately map the place and conduct scientific research and studies there. These things are unlikely to happen if he is going with a team he is unfamiliar with or has no idea about. Therefore, he was most interested in traveling with his own team. It wasn't long before he and his team decided to travel south from Australia to the part of Antarctica claimed by Australia called George V Land. But even if you say you can go, there is no such thing as a good place to go. The weather must be favorable, and there is a need for a good wealth. As we know, 100 to 120 years ago, not all parts of the world were discovered and not marked, and if any countries are discovered, it will not be available in public domain. Once a country finds a place, the treasures in that place will be used for the benefit of that country. After saying that treasure, even the minerals hidden under the earth. Therefore, it is possible to canvass the government and rich people of his own country by saying the same thing. So the government and the rich people agree to pay them to travel. So on December 2nd, 1911, Douglas Mawson and a group of 31 people on board the ship Aurora set off from the island of Hobart, Australia. That journey, which began as a quest for the secrets of Antarctica, ended in much misery and triumph. Now the story begins. Another thing is that we have heard many stories of people stranded in the poles, deserts, oceans, tropical forests, and the greatest of all the hardships they faced was the lack of food. They are setting up a base camp at that location. Their base camp location is unique in that it is a very windy place. It can be said that it is one of the fastest, windy places on Earth. They set up their base camp at such a place. This base camp was the main part of the mission, which is called Australasian Antarctic Expedition. This is the main base camp from where everything, even radio communication to the ship and home country, is done. At first, all the people live there, and there are about 31 people. After this, it is divided into 4 groups. Of these, 3 main groups are to be researched in different scientific disciplines. At the same time, it is important to the other group to pay attention to whether the radio communication is going on correctly and how the electronic communication should be done. For about 10 months, all observational experiments are conducted at this main base camp. That is, the people who split up into groups go to different places, collect the samples from there, do all the necessary things, After going a long distance, these people decide to do it, stay there in a sub-base camp, and the next day, a week later, everything returns to the base camp. Observation experiments are reviewed and then re-examination begins. The main base camp is in the month of January and the experiments are being conducted. The experiments have been completed for about 10 months. That is, when the 10th of November comes, a new decision is made. That is, we need to travel to some extreme places and do experiments from there to find the necessary things. Places to be marked on the maps need to be clearly defined. But not everyone can do these things, and it takes special courage for that. Who would be ready for this? What were the problems of this trip? The most important is the extreme climate. 3 people have to go on a journey, and after talking about the climate, it is the polar climate with extremely strong winds below 0 degrees. Also, as mentioned in the beginning, every step forward could be the next step towards death. There will be gaps in the snow like we can't see. Covered with ice, it will look like fresh snow on top. Even realize the fact that once you step on it, you will fall to the bottom of the floor. Besides this, there will also be floating snow mountains. Most of the journey here is in a vehicle called a sledge pulled by dogs. Once big snow mountains like this come up, it becomes difficult for even dogs to move forward. It is a must to take food with you when you are going with 3 men and a few dogs to the untrodden land. And what is there? This food is not enough for humans to eat. Dogs also need food to eat if they want to be able to pull carts in good health. In addition, the tent for camping in the snow, as well as the equipment for scientific observational experiments, must be carried, and the weight of all this adds up to a very difficult journey. Douglas Mawson leads this group of 3 brave men who decide to go on a journey. We know Douglas Mawson, who has conducted many experiments in Antarctica, has been there many times, and has walked to the top of the 2nd highest volcano in Antarctica, about 3,800 meters high. That means someone who knows that area without too much trouble. If you look at the second person, he is only 23 years old. Belgrave Edward Sutton Ninnis was an English officer in the Royal Fusiliers. After saying that his specialty is that he likes dogs very much, know how to train dogs and take good care of them. The third person in his group is Xavier Guillaume Mertz, was a Swiss polar explorer, mountaineer and skier who took part in the Far Eastern Party, a 1912-1913 component of the Australasian Antarctic Expedition, which claimed his life. Mertz Glacier on the George V coast in East Antarctica is named after him, so these 3 are finally going on a journey. When these 3 people go on a journey, each of the 3 have their own sledges. There are a total of 16 husky dogs to pull it. After taking into account food for humans and dogs, as well as survival kits and scientific equipment, the trip leaves about 320 kilograms of load. At first, the journey was not a problem. However, their goal is to map parts of the South Pole that have not been seen by humans. It has already been said that it is not that easy. At first, there were no major problems, and it can be said that their journey was a great success. They have a precise estimate of how many kilometers they have to cover each day and a clear plan of what to do. That is how they proceed. It has been exactly 1 month since the departure of this trip, which means that the trip starts on November 10th and ends on December 10th. By this time, this 3-member team is able to travel almost 500 kilometers from the base camp. But they take 16 huskies with them when they travel. The health condition of many of these dogs has become very, very bad. These dogs reach a point where they cannot pull this sludge. Besides that, these 3 men have a good amount of trouble. Everyone's lips are chapped, and when the light shines on the snow, the eyes get a good exposure to ultraviolet. Even vision may be affected after such exposure. Blindness may last for months, perhaps even complete loss of sight. Then also they have serious eye problems. In any case, no one is ready to leave the trip and go back. They have a belief that we can definitely overcome these physical crises if we move forward. What can be done to move forward? You can't leave people behind. You can't leave food and reduce the weight the dogs have to pull. They're replaced by a sludge, and if the remaining dogs are connected to the other 2 sludges during a sludge change, the weight to be pulled by the dogs will be greatly reduced. We know Mertz is a good skier, therefore he does not need sludge. A 3-member team is moving ahead, leaving a sludge. Accomplishing their goals is a must. But when he went a little further, he heard a loud noise from behind. Ninnis, his sludge, and 6 dogs are falling into a pit. They are falling down through the cracks in the ice. But Mertz and Mawson firmly believe that this young, healthy, and active young man, a senior officer in the British Army, can be saved. They searched for Ninnis for a long time. When these ninnies went down, they were calling loudly, doing everything to save him, but the ninnis didn't even hear the call back. They had a fish line used to catch fish. It has a large lead line which we know is used to cast long distances to catch fish. Therefore, they are measuring the depth of this crater with that string. They measured up to a depth of 148 feet. I mean, we have to understand one thing. If a person falls into a pool 10 or 20 feet deep, we know how dangerous it is if one doesn't know how to swim. So what happens if a person falls into a depth of 148 feet? They are realizing that one truth is that Ninnis will never come back. When this incident happened again, Mertz and Mawson were very scared because nothing else. Ninnis' sledge was being pulled by the 6 dogs that were the healthiest in the group. Then the 6 healthiest dogs in the pack went down. All the food for all the dogs was in his sludge, and most of the food for humans was in his sludge. Unbalanced weight and carrying such a large amount of weight in a single sludge has become a major cause of the accident. There is no need to blame anyone anymore. They are the only 2 people going to an area where no human is likely to visit Antarctica. What to do next? Of course, they can go back. They have food in their hands, but what is left in their hands is enough to eat for 10 days. If they wanted to sleep somewhere on the way, even the main tent was in this sled of his, sled of Ninnis. They don't know what to do, but they both come to a decision that they will go back to the main base camp after crossing more than 500 kilometers. We know that 3 members of this group, who reached Antarctica on November 10th, are making the second stage of the journey to the difficult areas. The ship will return on January 15th. The condition was that he should make an expedition and return in the meantime. If they haven't come back like this, will someone wait for them? No chance, because the ships have a fixed time to come and go to that part of Antarctica. Although it is not a written order, travel is permitted only when the weather is favorable. So these 2 started their journey back with limited food, limited resources, dogs and everything. They may not be able to come as fast as they traveled before. What will happen if they arrive after this January 15th? The ship must have left by then. Then it would be a year or 2 after the ship arrived. Until then, we have to hold on to the main base camp. So they are trying to reach before the date of January 15th. As soon as they walk the first few distances or get on the sledge, they realize that it is difficult to get back because the dogs have no food to eat. When they went a little further, they found the sledge they had left behind. They take that sledge with them, and that is what they use as a substitute for the tent they need to stay in later. They use the product by turning it over and lying under it, or by holding onto the snow. Dogs that don't eat for a short distance will become weak anyway. One thing they do is hunt down many of the dogs that are the weakest. They are eating dogs because they have nothing to eat. The rest of the dogs are fed the same dog meat. One by one, the dogs are falling dead in a way that can be counted as 1 or 2. They also have problems with their bodies, and because of eating dogs, their stomachs also have problems. They have diarrhea. They have vision problems due to the snow falling on their eyes and also due to the light shining on the snow. Apart from that, the skins on the hands are getting irritated. The skin on the soles of the feet is falling off. Why? He is getting a little more serious, and the skin around his genital area is falling off. He has a lot of physical discomfort. He is almost on the brink of death. At this point, Mawson gets the point. He is going to die. One night after what he did, Mertz was given a place to sleep for 1 night. Mawson arranges for Mertz to sleep for a night. He knows he may not wake up the next day. Similarly, Mertz died on the 8th of January, 7 days before the date of arrival at the main base camp and departure of the ship. At this time, Mawson is going alone in the cold of Antarctica. But he is doing what the Mertz needed. After death, he is ready to bury his body properly. Then he walks alone towards the main base camp. He walks a maximum of 8 kilometers a day. After going like this, it is not possible to reach the main base camp before January 15th. Walk a little further. Again and again he has to feel the strong wind while walking. It was not enough to say wind, it was a strong snow wind. It was a storm. What he did at that time was to make a house out of snow and open a cave and sleep inside. He had a little bit of food in his hand, and he is surviving there for several days. It is said that the 8th of February is a time when the wind decreases. While calculating, he realizes that the distance to reach the main base camp is only 60 kilometers, but it is the 8th of February, and it has been a long time since the ship left. He starts walking forward again. He gets a box and a paper, and when he opens this paper, he realizes that in this paper it is written that you have nothing to fear. In that box was a survival kit. The survival kit had all the things to last him for a few days. He walked forward with all his might. After walking a short distance, he reached the main base camp. He thought no one would be there, but a group had ambushed him and the people who went with him in that base camp. They were not ready to leave them. Maybe next year will be the year after that, and maybe the ship will come back again. Even so, those 7 or 8 people did not want to leave the people who had come with him to investigate. He walked up to these waiting people. They serve him properly, proper care and food are given. Food and fuel were all there. In the year it takes for the ship to return, his health is back to normal. On the 10th of November, during the second leg of this expedition, Ninnis fell. And the place where Ninnis, who was a soldier in the army, fell is known today as Ninnis Glacier. Likewise, the place where Mertz died and was buried is called Mertz Glacier. Although 2 men who braved the rugged path died in this expedition, on the whole the expedition was technically and scientifically a success, because all the people who went on this journey had exactly completed the mission assigned to them before they died. Based on these true events that took place about 110 years ago, we can see books, movies, and many documentary on the internet called Alone on the Ice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story of Douglas Mawson, who traveled to the South Pole in Antarctica, got stranded, and survived. If you like this heartwarming story, then definitely like it and share it with your friends. Comments on this video, whatever they may be, are welcome. Anyway, let's meet again with another good topic. It's me, Third Eye, signing off.